Hi there, and yesterday I had the most wonderful, wonderful birthday ever because all of you sent me so many super duper lovely wishes and so much love and so many blessings. And I really want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart, people on Twitter, on Facebook, and I haven't actually gone onto LinkedIn as yet, but I'm sure there are lots of messages there as well. And Instagram as well, and of course on the Slow Fire Chef YouTube channel community page. And I have managed to reply to some of you, but I'm still going through it because there's so many messages, it's taking some time. And I promise I'll get there by midnight tonight. Get back to it right after I finish this podcast. So today's podcast is Amit has dubbed it 10 hidden gems of the regional cuisines, but actually there are much more than 10, but 10 at least, and we shall cover those 10 at least. The first hidden gem, and I'm going to do this chronologically with my life so that I have some perspective and some order to the whole thing. Otherwise it's all so spread out and so massive that it would get a little confusing. So of course, the first hidden gem is if you watch Hindi films, then agar tumne maa ka doodh piya hai, to maa ka doodh is the eternal hidden gem, which I don't think any human being can replicate in a laboratory or in a kitchen or anywhere else. That is something that nature has made, and it is such a wonderful thing. Did you all know that the mother's milk actually evolves and develops as the child grows and the child's needs develop? So it's really quite an amazing thing what this aspect of biology is, and it can only be magic, nothing else. I mean, the way nature has sort of made something like nutrition such an intrinsic part. I mean, what it gives us, and not just us, all living beings, plants, animals, humans, it sort of makes sure that we all survive, blossom, grow, and of course reach ripe old ages like I have done. So moving on from maa ka doodh, mother's milk. When I was around 4 or 5 years old, I used to fall sick very often, and too much of stealing ice and getting my throat sore and fever and stuff like that. So every time I would sort of be recovering, my mother would serve me the quintessential Bengali patla mache jhol. And I'm going to be uploading this episode maybe tomorrow or day after. And it is, I mean, Bengal is of course known for a plethora of fish curries, but the ones that really make it to the forefront are of course all those spicy ones like shushe bata and mache jhal and stuff like that. But this patla mache jhol is something that is cooked in almost every Bengali home every day, if not every day, every other day. And it is one of the most underestimated dishes that I have come across, because it is such a simple but brilliant dish. I mean, all you're using is a little bit of coriander powder and cumin powder and a little bit of salt and turmeric, and you've got this super fantastic fish curry happening, which is delicate, light, and so healthy. And I have served it to people, and as as an invitation food, especially to non-Bengalis who always come around saying, we want mache jhol. So I've served this to them, and they've actually ended up sort of drinking the liquid, the curry of the mache jhol up after they finish their meal. And of course, if you can get the Gandharaj lebu, which is again a hidden gem you find in the eastern parts of India, in Bengal and Assam certainly, and I have a cousin who's growing it in Jharkhand. And I think there's a particular kind of soil that this lemon requires. My sister's grown it in Delhi, and you might have seen a picture of it when we were doing those travel diaries, and she was feeding us all sorts of food in Delhi. So the Gondoraj lebu is something that, you know, adds that little delicate touch of fragrance to this fish curry, and it is one of the yummiest fish curries you can have. So once we upload that episode, do try it and do make it at home. It's very simple, and you can do it with carp, you can do it with you know, non-bony fishes like singhara and bhetki and stuff like that, as you know, fish like that as well. So it's really a must try, and I'm very surprised that patla machi jhol hasn't made it to places like Europe and stuff where they enjoy, you know, delicate flavors and things. So that is one certain hidden gem, which is an everyday dish in a place like Bengal. Growing up in Delhi, my childhood was mostly spent in Delhi. And growing up in Delhi, of course, meant in those days there used to be this Chinese restaurant called Mikado, and Connaught Place, Inner Circle. And we would go there every time, you know, it was a dinner out kind of a thing. And of course, the food was fantastic, and I haven't really tasted Chinese food from my youth the way it all used to be cooked. Somewhere, you know, Punjabi influences, Bengali influences, Maharashtrian influences, all these influences came into the Chinese cuisine across the country, and it sort of, I guess, adapted, evolved, developed, whatever you want to call it. But that Chinese food was really fantastic. But we're not talking about Chinese food today. So there used to be this place called Pandara Road, which is still there. But the Pandara Road that I've been to now has sadly, you know, really deteriorated, in the sense a lot of those restaurants have closed down. It used to be like a square with 15, 20 restaurants over there. And the one thing that they would serve would be a barra kebab. And that barra kebab, I mean, is one of the best kebabs that I had ever eaten. Even though people, you know, sort of sell tikka, mutton tikka, chicken tikka, and chicken malai kebab, and tandoori chicken and stuff like that. But I feel the barra kebab is one of the best kebabs because it's the flavors are much more rich, and it's really moist inside, and the bone, because it's meat on bone, so that bone really adds to the flavors of the kebab, and you know, the charred bits of bone that you get in your mouth. And it is a super duper kebab. And I really bless the person whoever discovered the tandoor in northern India. I think it was the frontier guys, right? That's what you told me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the kind of food that turns up in tandoors of course are common across the globe now, because the Punjabis have taken it all over there. But I do hope they're selling barra kebabs around the world as well, because that barra kebab is really worth having. The other thing about Delhi was every Tuesday, I don't know, I think it happens in other cities as well, but Delhi, I discovered it, is that every Tuesday people go to the Hanuman Mandir. And when they go to the Hanuman Mandir, they carry bundi as a prasad. So they sort of, you know, give bundi to the Hanuman ji, the idol, and then of course the Pandit ji gives it back to you. And you get the best bundi in Delhi on Tuesdays. So I just love that, and I used to keep waiting for Tuesdays to come around so that, you know, one could have bundi. And it's again a must try. Bundi is basically, it's made out of gram flour, fried gram flour, small balls which are sort of dipped in a sugar syrup, in case you don't know what bundi is. But it's a must try again in Delhi. So these are two things that Delhi has to offer, apart from, of course, the chole bhature and the chaat pakodi and you know, parathe wale gali. And I mean, Delhi is like crazy for food. So, and of course Amit's favorite Qureshi, but Qureshi makes awesome barra kebabs and even mutton tikkas. From Delhi, we moved to Chandigarh. Of course, at that time, I was too young to be eating Punjabi food or food from outside, non home food. But talking about Chandigarh and Punjab, Punjab again, some of the food I've had in some of our Sardaji friends' homes, the real Punjabi food, very simple, really tasteful, and I mean, they make sure that, you know, those pulkas that come to your plate are hot, whether it's pulkas or parathas or whatever it is that you're eating. And the beauty of eating Punjabi food is that, you know, you're waiting for your pulka to arrive, because everybody gets one pulka turn by turn, and it takes a couple of minutes to make a pulka. So you can't eat too fast, because you don't want to be, you know, like hanging around waiting at the table, you know, one more pulka, when will my pulka come, kind of a thing. So the breads of Punjab are again something that of course they are very popular, but I feel again that somewhere along the way, you know, we've sort of tried to make it too commercial, probably. So restaurants and places that serve you breads, the Indian breads. I mean, I remember I'd gone for a friend's wedding in Delhi, and there was this gentleman who'd come. I think I've told you about this before. Who'd come all the way down from Amritsar, and he was only serving at the wedding reception. There was this, you know, a row of various food stalls. So this gentleman from Amritsar was making aloo kulcha, and the joy with which he was making that aloo kulcha, I mean, he was stuffing this dough with potatoes and, you know, flattening it with his hand, and then putting it into the tandoor and waiting for it to sort of get cooked, and then he would take it out and he would like this whole spoonful of butter on it and then crush it because it's crisp. So he would crush it and he would give it to you on a plate, and it was heaven. Eating that aloo kulcha was heaven, and even though it was heavy, I actually ate two. I have tried making it at home, but haven't had any great success as yet, because of course you do need a tandoor, and I tried it in the grill, in the oven. I tried doing it, you know, by turning my pressure cooker upside down, and that didn't work either. So I'm waiting for Amit to buy me a small tandoor so I can make the aloo kulchas, and I can probably share that episode with you. But there's one Punjabi dish, surprisingly. It's a fish dish, and no, I'm not talking about the Amritsari tali machhi or the Amritsari fish curry. I'm talking about the tomato fish. You might have seen this episode on our channel, which is tomato fish. Again, is a recipe that is cooked in various parts of the country, but I found that the Punjabi tomato fish was absolutely brilliant, because they sort of fry up the tomato so well, bhoon ke, that, you know, the sweetness of the tomato comes out, and it's tangy and it's spicy, and of course they add, you know, red chilies and garam masala and all that. And you have to try that recipe, because it's really worthwhile. And even though I'm a Bengali, and even though I am a fish eater, but I think tomato fish is one dish that you know, Punjab has to offer, that you should really try it. And especially the one that Amit cooked, which is my mother-in-law's recipe. From Chandigarh, the war was on, so we waited out the war. This was the 65 war, I think. And from there, after a few more years in Delhi, we moved to Bombay. And in Bombay, we were living in a place called Mud Island, which wasn't Bombay city, so it was away. And I used to go out on my own to play. There weren't too many children over there. And the fishermen would be drying fish on the roads, because the roads were like the least sandy parts of the, you know, topography. So, and I don't know what it was, but the smell of that dry fish really tempted me. And I used to pick it up, and these were little prawns and stuff like that which were drying on the roads, and I would pick up a fistful and put it in my pocket, and I would keep munching on it like peanuts. And I was just thinking that, if we can go so crazy about Japanese sushi food and, all that raw fish that Japan offers, the Japanese cuisine offers, uh, why can't we make a big deal out of all the dry fish that our country has to offer? And we make such amazing dry fish. I mean, the quality of the dry fish in our country is really, really good. And all the coastal parts are doing it. And I think it's again a very underestimated, underrated kind of food. And I have offered dry fish to, non-fish eating people, and they have loved it. It depends totally on the way you prepare it, of course. There is a particular way they make it. In Maharashtra, they make the chutney and the thecha and stuff like that. And it's spicy, it has onion and garlic and things like that. So once it's cooked, you hardly notice the taste of it. And I mean, similarly, places like Mangalore and Kerala and all these places, Bengal does so much, has so many dry fish preparations. And it is really yummy because it's very high on proteins as well. And I feel again it is a very underrated kind of an ingredient, or even a dish if you prefer. I mean, it is really a hidden gem that we have. And maybe that's why we don't sort of, broadcast it, because I know when I have dry fish and, on the table, I'm very iffy about sharing it with people because I want to eat it all by myself. But coming back to Bombay, Bombay, when I came back as an adult, of course, that's when I discovered the street foods and stuff like that. So I never really took to the vada pav or the usal misal and batata vada and stuff like that. Pav bhaji, yes, pav bhaji is good, but pav bhaji is something you sort of, get everywhere, and it's easy to make at home and, stuff like that. But the one dish that Amit introduced me to was keema pav. And I remember we had it first at, what is that restaurant called in Bandra, Amit?
Lucky.
Lucky. Lucky's restaurant. Before that, I'd only had biryani in Lucky's restaurant. But when Amit took me there, and it's a small hole in the wall, now of course it's grown big and they have lots of chain, restaurants around and stuff like that. But when we went over there, Amit said, "What? You haven't had keema pav at Lucky?" He said, like, "Do keema pav le aaye." So I said, "Why don't we start with one?" He said, "No, I'm not sharing my keema pav with you. You eat your own keema pav." So this keema pav came, and of course it was floating with oil and stuff, but it was so delicious. And then I think, Amit, you you did it on the channel, right? On the YouTube channel. So Amit has done the keema pav on the slow fire chef, and if you want to try making it, you must. Pav is, of course, I don't know if it's available outside of Bombay, Maharashtra, but it's not very difficult to make if you're a bread baker. You just need to sort of make sure that, use the bun, the recipe, and make them smaller or whatever. Otherwise, you can just eat it with bread. It's fantastic, and it really goes well with bread. It's not a roti dish or a rice dish. Keema, the way Amit's made it on the Slow Fire Chef channel, is a bread dish. So that brings us to.
You will be sharing links of all these episodes below.
Yeah. So all these, some of these dishes that I'm talking about, which we have recreated on the channel, Amit will share links for them with you, so you can try making them if you haven't already. Anyway, so from Bombay, Dad went off to Indonesia, and we followed him after a year. And Indonesia was, of course, a foreign country, so there was no question of discovering hidden gems over there. But what I did discover was two things. One is that a lot of the Indonesian food is similar to Indian food. They have a particular kind of food called, a place called Padang, from where the food that comes from Padang is very similar to our Indian coastal foods, especially the Kerala side of it. So it's a lot of it is cooked with coconut and coconut milk and stuff like that, and it's spicy and it's curries and gravies and things like that. And of course, I loved it. Somehow I found that those tastes really appeal to me. And of course, the other food was the boiled kind of stuff like mee baso, which we've done on the channel as well, which was soup and not very, it wasn't spicy or anything of that sort, unless you added the green chili and garlic thing, which was again reminiscent of the northeastern kind of Bengal, Agartala kind of food. So that was one thing that I discovered, that Indonesian food was similar, had similar traits as our Indian foods. And the second thing that I discovered was that I was so proud of our Indian cuisine, because my mother would throw these parties for the diplomatic crowd over there, and she would serve them dishes like saag meat and which is part of our slow fire kitchen menu, and mustard fish and chochuri and various things like that. Of course, the mutton curry was a must as well, and she would make luchi, and she would make biryani and things like that, and the foreigners just went crazy over this food and they loved it and they would keep coming back for more. So every time my parents had a party in the house, we were always like, house full. There was not a single sorry we can't come kind of response that came in. All the RSVPs were, yes, we're attending, yes, we're attending. Of course, my mother was a fantastic cook. That goes without saying. And so that was the other thing I discovered, that I was so proud of our Indian cuisine. From Indonesia, I went straight off to boarding school, Tamil Nadu. Oh, hi Lata! Just in time, I'm going to talk about school food. So from Jakarta, I went straight off to Lawrence School, Lovedale, Tamil Nadu. This was the first time I was living in the south, all alone, no mama to fall back on, and I was at the mercy of the school kitchen, and I discovered sambar. Every day was sambar day, and it was rice and sambar, sambar and rice, so much so that I got addicted to it. But and years later, when I was pregnant in Calcutta and I couldn't eat anything, the only food I could eat was sambar and rice, which I discovered in a small Udupi restaurant down the road in Calcutta. But the thing that I really discovered in school was all my friends were from various parts of South India. So there were a lot of people from Kerala, and especially Kerala villages. I mean, there were people like Lata, who's here with us, and Kusuma and Molly Kutti, and all these people who were like from villages in Kerala. So they would come with their tuck, and this tuck was so special. Of course, the banana chips and all were like givens, but what I discovered was podi. South India and podi. Podi is such a fantastic addition to any food that you're eating, and something that is hardly talked about, and something that is very discreetly marketed, I find, in most stores that you go to. But you have podis for not just your miligai podi, which is the normal one which is used for dosas and idlis and stuff, or the Malayali chamandi podi, but you have like different varieties of podi, some made with curry leaves, some made with, you have that Andhra kind of podi, and you have podi is powder made with sesame seeds, and they've discovered these spicy concoctions with different lentils, with different kinds of spices, some with copra, some without copra, and they are also brilliant. And I mean, you could have like a whole spice rack full of South Indian podis from all over, from Karnataka, from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu, from Andhra, and there's not a single meal that you would be missing anything spicy with your food. I mean, you can just have dal chawal or just ghee and chawal and a podi on it, which is something that I discovered how to eat in that Andhra Bhavan restaurant that I've told you about in Delhi. So podi is a very hidden gem, I feel, because apart from people who belong to South India, us poor old, North Indians and East Indians and people like us, we are not really made aware of this special thing which they very secretly sort of create and hand over to each other when they meet and things like that. So pori is something I really discovered in school, and of course there were these huge laddus. I remember my friend Kusuma used to bring. We used to call them moon rocks because they were this big, and they were made with rice and all sorts of things and sweet, and really hard to eat. So if you had one, you could sort of gnaw at it for 1 week, and maybe you'd be able to finish it at the end of that. After school, I pushed off to Kolkata and Jadavpur University. And of course, that's the perfect age to have street food because you're not doing classes, you're bunking classes, and you're walking off to the lake, or you're, going off to see a movie or something like that, and you are so hungry, and all you can afford is street food. I remember my friend Rita and I, we used to the bus fare used to be 45 paisa, and my mother used to give me 1 rupee every day. So 45 paisa to college, 45 paisa back from college, 10 paisa would get saved. At the end of 5 days, I would have 50 paisa, which meant I could afford 2 plates of golgappas, puchka as we call them in Calcutta. And of course, when we felt richer, or if there were guys around who were willing to treat you, not boyfriends, just friends, we would walk down to the lake, and there was this one guy who used to sell something called aloo puchka. Again, if you've not lived in Calcutta, I don't think you would have ever eaten this, and it is a real hidden gem, and I think it can sort of become like a gourmet food, if you want to call it that, because it's this, you've got this puchka which is made of flour, wheat flour, or with all-purpose flour, and inside that they sort of make a hole in it, and inside that, instead of putting the liquid, they put a really spicy aloo dum. So small potato put into that, and then they add a little coriander on it and a little bit of ginger juliennes and stuff like that, and you just pop it in your mouth, and it is like a crunchy burst of spice and potato in your mouth. And it is so delicious, I can't tell you. Those guys have disappeared, so there is no way for me to get that recipe of aloo dum. I have tried recreating it again, but it hasn't happened as yet. The day it happens, believe me, I'm going to tell you all about it, because that is one dish that you really have to try. So people, if you're watching from Calcutta, please let us know, let me know if those guys are still there with aloo puchka, because one would really like to try that. Of course, Calcutta is famous for the kati rolls, and I have a friend in Delhi who just got to know about just my roots from me, and he actually ordered kati rolls from Calcutta. And of course, his wife tells me that they weren't very edible by the time they reached. I mean, 8 hours of traveling, can you imagine? But kati rolls is something that are very simple to make, and you can make it with anything and everything, and it's just the paratha which is made with maida, and you can stuff it with potatoes, you can stuff it with an omelette. I mean, that omelette thing is what I've done on the YouTube show. But you can even just stuff it with cucumber, which is, small chopped onions and cucumber and tomato and coriander and green chilies, a little bit of lemon, and roll it up, and it is yummy. It is one of the best snacks to eat on an evening if you're feeling like eating something a little more substantial than the normal biscuits or something like that. And again, very doable, very easy, And I don't know why people always wait to order it from a restaurant, but a kati roll is something that you can make at home with no problems at all, and get the same flavors. And it's again, I feel, it's special, but I feel it's probably not eaten enough, and you can do it with with wheat flour. You don't have to do it with all-purpose flour, so it can be healthy as well. Anyway, from Calcutta, I came back to Delhi, this time as a grown up adult. And of course, there were a lot of trips made to Tib Dhabs. If you've ever lived in Delhi, or if you're on your way to Delhi and visiting there for a holiday or something, you must go and visit the Tibetan dhabas, which are a little beyond the Delhi University. I don't know if they're still there, but I know that the Tibetan dhaba people have sort of moved out because I guess the population grew. So they have moved out from that area of Delhi, and you do find them making momos in, Greater Kailash Market, and Chanakya Puri, of course, they have a whole setup. So you have a lot of these momo shops in Chanakya Puri. And I mean, the Tibetan food is, I feel it's become a part of India regional cuisine, thanks to the Dalai Lama, who's been living with us for so long. We are blessed. And you've got all these yummy momos and thuppa and all sorts of other foods happening. And there's this one person I watch on YouTube who I'll share a link of his, because he is such an amazing person to watch while cooking. And yes, Chetna, we're going to do that YouTube, what to watch on YouTube thing as well. If you're watching right now, I have been thinking about that. It does mean that I have to do a lot more homework, but I will sort of one day cover that as well. But of course, as a grown up, Delhi was a different story altogether, because now I was like eating all across the city. I was working over there. So everywhere, and I was in sales and marketing. So every time when one went on a sales call, one was always eating at, various places and things. But from there, what I was also doing, because I was handling North India, I was also traveling to places like Shimla and Jaipur and, all the North Indian capital cities. But in Shimla, of course, those were also Karka days. Karka meaning broke. Your salary was never enough to take care of, luxuries. But, and one was always sort of scrabbling around at the bottom of one's bag to, find the coins that would make up a rupee or something of that sort. So one was always sort of eating at small places, like dhabas and stuff like that. And the dhaba food in those days especially is something, again, I have spoken about this in, I think, the legacies of Indian food. But the dhaba food was really, really yummy, and it's always so hot and fresh. And you eat it over there, and all these people sitting around, and everybody's like, there's no conversation happening because everybody's so hungry. And but the one thing that I discovered in Shimla was the pickle, the chili pickle especially. That Shimla chili pickle is something to die for. It is very different from any other pickles. It's sweet, sour, hot, and it's made with I think they use a little tamarind, and they use a little fenugreek. So it really comes out well. I have a fantastic recipe for it, and I promise one of these days I'm going to share it with you. And you can use the hot spicy green chilies, that really gives it a zing. Or you can use the non-spicy ones as well, because that will give you the fragrance of the chili and it won't be that hot. So everybody can eat it. And in Jaipur, which was another one of the cities that was on my beat, a friend's mother took me to have dinner at this place called LMB, Lakshmi Mishtan Bhandar. And I mean, I don't know what it's like today, but in those days, you walked into this restaurant and it was like this huge room with all these chandeliers hanging and well lit and very sort of ornate and luxurious and stuff like that. And but what hit you the minute you entered was the fragrance of, you know, that desi ghee and the cardamom and whatever garam masalas they were using, that sort of just hit you the minute you walked in, and you were like dying to eat. And they made this pulao which was so fantastic. I don't know if it's still there. Jaipur, I never really got into.
Sankalp is asking, just curious, what are you drinking?
Coffee,
Filter coffee.
black filter coffee. um, but I never really got into dal bati churma. In fact, I never ate it in any of those trips to Jaipur because I don't know, somehow it never turned me on. I have still not really eaten it, even though I have a Rajasthani neighbor and she has offered it to me from time to time. And she's even threatening to come and cook it for us on the channel. So one of these days you might just see her making dal bati churma for us. But the one Rajasthani dish that I have fallen in love with, and that my now friend Anu Patria had, I discovered her recipe on Facebook and I asked her for permission to recreate it on the channel, and she very sweetly said, yes, of course, go right ahead. It was Banjara mutton. Oh, I can't tell you how good that mutton curry is. And I mean, Anu, of course, has sort of worked that recipe to perfection. So all I did was just blindly follow her lead, and it's there on the channel. So you must try this Rajasthani Banjara mutton. I've watched a lot of videos on Banjara mutton, and none of them sort of looked as appetizing or sounded as good. You know, a recipe can sound good or not sound good. So none of those recipes really sounded good. Another place that I used to keep going on tours was Lucknow. And Lucknow, of course, everybody goes to Lucknow to eat biryani and kebabs. But I went with one of my colleagues, and we were working for Anand Bazaar, and he used to handle circulation. Uh, so the circulation guys are really the best guys to go with when you're looking for food, because they have sort of, you know, checked out each and every nook and corner of the dhaba type of food. So Shamulda sort of introduced me to the Lucknowi chicken kali mirch, and this is not that typical chicken kali mirch that you get in restaurants, which is full of cream and yogurt, and you know, it's got a gravy and things like that. This was like a grilled tandoori chicken kali mirch. And the first day when we went out for dinner and he ordered chicken kali mirch, he actually ordered two. So I said, Shamulda, isn't two too much? It's just two of us. I mean, you know, one chicken kali mirch should be more than enough. He said, no way. You just wait and see. So these two chicken came, and believe me, by the end of it, we'd actually finished off both. And of course, Shamulda ate more than me, but by the end of it, with my whole mouth was, my lips were burning, my mouth was burning, my fingers were burning. These chickens were like coated with pepper, and I don't know what they used in the marinade, because there was no visible marinade except for the pepper. And again, I have tried making this chicken kali mirch, and Amit, when he went to Lucknow for a meeting recently, he sort of came back with what he thought would be the chicken kali mirch. When we went on a shoot to Lucknow, I went looking for these dhabas, but couldn't find them. And
We have a version of it on our
yeah, we've got a version of the chicken kali mirch, but not that tandoori chicken kali mirch. I mean, we've like really looked for it, but of course the one that Amit does is pretty good. But the tandoori one is what I'm looking for. So if any of you know of anybody in Lucknow who's making chicken kali mirch in the tandoor, do write in and do let us know, because I would love to have that once again. Then of course, Bhopal. Bhopal is famous for poha and jalebi. That's the breakfast you get over there. But and I mean, we went on a shoot over there, and every day we were getting poha and jalebi. So I finally asked the production manager, I was like, anything different? Can we have something else other than poha and jalebi? So he said, no, over here everybody eats poha jalebi for breakfast. That's a done thing. So I said, okay, but I don't want poha jalebi anymore. But of course, the Bhopal poha is, I mean, the Madhya Pradesh poha is very different. It's more like a steam poha. I mean, I think poha is a staple, if to call it that, the flattened rice, is something that can be, you can have a festival of poha because there are so many different ways of making that poha. You can make it steamed, you can make it, roasted, you can make it fried, you can make it the South Indian way, you can make it the Bengali way, you can make it all sorts of ways. I mean, there are really probably 20 different recipes for poha that are there in this country, and they're all breakfast or snack recipes. And I'm surprised that that it doesn't go outside much more than just in one or two kinds of forms. So one of these days I'm actually going to do a lot of poha on the channel, and let's see what happens. Of course, we'll be eating poha for the next 5 days, but then how does it matter? I also had the privilege of traveling to Srinagar quite often when I was working in Delhi. And on one of those trips, I went, my colleague who was with me was a Pandit, and somebody in his family was getting married. So he said, come along, you come and see.
Sankalp is saying, yes, Amit's version is very good. I have tried it. I'll try to get authentic recipe if possible. I'm from Lucknow, by the way.
Oh, hi Sankalp. I'm so glad you're from Lucknow, and please, it would really be lovely if you can get us a recipe. Amit's version is lovely. I mean, I've eaten it, I keep eating it, and we've got it as, one of our dishes on the Slow Fire Chef kitchen menu card as well. But I would really love that dry one as well. So, to get back to Kashmir, and he said, come and see how a Pandit wedding happens. So, I went, and we all sat down to eat. Eating seemed to be the main thing that was happening. So we sat on the floor in this huge circle, and there was this thali in front of me with literally a mountain of rice. And I looked at that rice and I said, I'm sorry, but I can't eat so much, so can you reduce the rice? So the lady of the house, the hostess whose daughter was getting married, she got very upset. She said, oh, okay, fine, we'll take out a little. So she sort of reduced a little from the top. I said, no, more. And finally it sort of, came down to a quantity I felt I could manage. And then the meats started arriving, and there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like dry meat preparations. And I was like stunned. So by the time I finished those dry meat preparations, my rice was over. So more rice had to be taken. And by the end of it, I actually did eat that same quantity of rice that they had originally served me. And of course, the meats, I mean the Pandit meats and the Muslim, the Vaza meats, the recipes are similar but different because I think the Pandit ones are lighter and more, have less spice quotient in them. The Vaza ones are a little more heavy in that sense. But what I really loved in Kashmir was the vegetarian food, and especially this preparation of what they call hak. Hak is basically spinach. I mean, not spinach, saag. But shak, what we call shak. But the Kashmiri hak is collard greens, and they make it, it's slightly watery, but it's again very simply cooked with just mustard oil and hing and salt and turmeric and maybe a little bit of chili powder if you want it, or green chilies. And it is one of the most delicious preparations I have ever eaten. And I would, whenever I am able to, I always ask for, whenever one goes to a Kashmiri restaurant. I even had a Kashmiri neighbor who said she was getting hak in season time, and of course I ordered it. But hak is such a brilliantly simple dish again, like that patla machhi chol. And a lot of the Kashmiri vegetarian cuisine is that they even have this bengan curry. Again, most of all their foods made with mustard oil. So probably that's what sort of bonded me with it. But apart from the fact that it's cooked with mustard oil, again they use very little. I mean, they use very little spices, in the sense if they're using one thing, they don't put everything into it. They're like selective as to what they're adding to what. And they have these green apples. So I saw this cart guy, with a mountain of green apples. So I bought it from him. I bought 2 or 3 of them. And my colleague who met me later, he saw these apples and he said, "What are you planning to do with this?" So I said, "I'm going to eat it." He said, "Oh, you are?" And he had a good laugh. So I said, "Why? What's wrong?" He said, "You can't eat it like that. You have to cook it." I was like, "What rubbish?" And I bit into it and it was sour, and it was like it had this sticky kind of a thing to it. And I mean, like, I had to throw it away because obviously there was no kitchen that I was going to have access to cook those green apples. So the other 2 that were there, I sort of gave them away to somebody. But again, I think they fry them up and serve them with a chutney or something of that sort. So the vegetarian food in Kashmir is something that you really have to try. I mean, apart from the usual suspects like rajma and stuff, you have to try all the greens that they serve, especially during the summer months when those greens are available. And of course, in the meat dishes, apart from everything else, the one dish that Amit again introduced me to, and he's done it on the channel, is a dish called aab gosht, which is mutton stew. It's mutton cooked, it's stewed in milk. And being a Bengali, I was like, mutton and milk doesn't go. I mean, you can do it with dahi, but not milk. And Amit was like, no, it has to be milk. And I read it. And later on, I discovered that, milk is actually, it works like a tenderizer. So in Kashmir, they even sort of soak the meat for 2 days in milk to sort of marinate it and things like that. Of course, the weather there is much cooler, so things don't spoil. But so milk and mutton, aab gosht, you have to try it out, check it out. Turns out pretty good. Then, of course, much older, one went to places like Kerala and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. And Kerala, I mean, was not a strange place for me from a food point of view. I already had a lot of, opportunities to eat Malayali food, especially because my sister's mother-in-law was from Kerala, and she used to serve this thing called fish moili. And that's one of my most favorite fish dishes. Again, it's a very light, delicate fish dish, which uses a little bit of coconut milk, but it's got these tomato slices in it. And if you want to check out the recipe, again, it's there on the channel. And it's really very delicate and hardly any spice in it, which is different from there's another sardines curry that I love. And I have heard that you can make sardines with tamarind leaves, and I've asked a lot of people about this, and but nobody seems to know much about it. So in case you're from Kerala and you know about a fish recipe, especially a sardine recipe with tamarind leaves, because I seem to remember a lady called Mrs. Abraham cooking it for me in a tea when I was around 7 years old, and so it was really yummy. And sardines as a fish lends itself so well to the sour, tangy taste of tamarind or tamarind leaves, and mouth-watering thinking about it. And of course, tapioca was one more thing that I discovered in the Kerala cuisine, which I feel is again very underrated and really hidden from the public eye, because there's so many things you can do with tapioca. I mean, things like tapioca and sweet potatoes and all these are vegetables that really need to come out and sort of be there because they have such amazing flavors and they sort of adapt to various things, like prawns and tapioca that I did was like out of the blue came to my head because I had that prawn recipe and I had this tapioca and I was like, why not? And it came out really well. And then I discovered that they actually cook tapioca like a biryani and in Kerala and nobody ever told me about it. I mean, so hidden gem or what? So next time you're in Kerala, look for the tapioca biryani. Then, of course, Karnataka. Oh, Karnataka. Living in Bangalore was absolutely heaven because a lot of my friends over there, I mean, of course, local from Karnataka, but there were some from Coorg, and I mean, they took us across to Coorg, and one of my classmates, Preetham Basappa, and of course, he introduced me to my first taste of pandi curry. Pandi curry is pork curry, but cooked in the Coorg style, and it uses this particular vinegar called kachampali. It's like a vinegar, but it's a really sour kind of thing, which is locally, sourced over there. And it is one of the most yummy pork preparations I have come across. And I don't know why Coorg food is not more, sort of available in other cities like, say, Bombay and Delhi and Calcutta and stuff, because they have such amazing dishes. They have this thing called mango curry. Now, I can understand why that hasn't, spread its wings and, been discovered by the rest of the world, because this mango curry is made with these small wild mangoes that grow, and of course it's only in the mango season, and the mangoes are this size literally, and it's like semi ripe, semi raw, so it's got that lovely tangy taste to it, and they make a curry with it. And my friend Anuradha Ganapati, who shared the pandi curry recipe with us on the channel, she has also shared a mango curry recipe with me, which if and when, if ever I can access those mangoes, I'm certainly going to try making it. So, but it has to be those wild mangoes from the trees and from the forests of Coorg, and that is such a beautiful hidden gem that's there waiting to be discovered. Then, of course, you have the Mangalorean kori rotis and sanas, apart from the various beef and pork preparations. So many Christians living there, Catholics living there, and they have such amazing variations. I have an Anglo-Indian friend who lives, actually her mother's from Kerala, her father was Anglo-Indian, so, and the mother, Auntie Anne, she actually grew up in Calcutta, so their house food is more a mix of various things, but they do a lot of Anglo-Indian dishes, and it's really yummy food. But the Mangalorean dishes that you get over there are so amazing, especially things like the beef fry, if you eat beef, and the pork fry, they also have a variation of the pork sorpatel and things like that. So, but the breads that you get in Karnataka, things like the neer dosa, again, now neer dosa is getting popular, but neer dosa is again such a yummy kind of a, thing to eat any curries with, any gravies with, and it's so simple to make. And but I mean, simple in the sense it's a very delicate operation making a neer dosa, but it is such a lovely thing because it's totally bland and it's nice, and it's got a cool taste to it, kind of a thing, and it's got a very clean taste to it, not cool, clean taste to it, and it really sort of livens up anything else that you're eating with it. So a Mangalorean neer dosa is something, Karnataka neer dosa is something that you really must try at some time. Tamil Nadu, of course, lots and lots of friends from Chennai, so we even went up to Chettinad, as you all, I'm sure, have heard from me umpteen times. But Tamil Nadu, the one thing that is yummy about Tamil Nadu, again, very underrated, is the rasam. You can actually, like a poha festival, you can have a rasam festival because there is such a huge variety of rasams that are made. Rasam is basically like a, a broth. I mean, it's a spicy broth, and you can make it with anything. I mean, I've even added chicken stock and mutton stock to some of my rasams, and they turn out so yummy, especially in winter and you're a non-vegetarian. You can do a rasam with any of the meats, any of the stocks. And of course, I don't know if you've tried the pineapple rasam that we have on the channel. That was amazing because the khatta meetha, whoever sort of watched that episode and made that pineapple rasam, they loved it. And I mean, I think the rasam is something that should be much more shouted about than, say, the other stuff that, you know, the idli dosa, everybody talks about idli dosa, but rasam is something that is really worthwhile in from Tamil Nadu. And of course, probably my most favorite foods come from the Northeast. And we're not talking about favorite foods, we're talking about hidden gems. And the Northeast has so many hidden gems because everybody thinks that, oh, Northeast food must be stinky food, smelly food, there's that, but not necessary, because the Northeast food is one of the most cleanly cooked, simple, hardly any spices, that kind of food. A lot of it is roasted, a lot of it is just boiled or steamed or whatever. And especially the vegetables that you get locally over there, things like bamboo shoot, some of the greens, you know, the fish, the poultry, the meats, the chicken, and it's all, I mean, you can taste everything separately. It's like the Chinese food. And you know, like they of course do use, certain dishes do use turmeric and things like the Naga meat, pork curry and stuff like that, do use various other spices and things. But you know, like the Sichuan pepper, again, I mean, the Northeast food is something that you don't really, now I find in Bombay there are places that are offering various Northeastern dishes and things like that. A lot of Tibetan food is happening. But it's so sad that it took so long for it to all come about, because I feel the whole world is missing out on some amazing cuisines out of India, with, you know, the Northeast food not sort of getting its due space in the Indian cuisine thing. Especially the bamboo shoot. Oh, I love the bamboo shoot. And of course, a lot of the bamboo shoot that comes from there is salted in brine and stuff, so it tends to get a little smelly. But if you can access fresh bamboo shoot, and I don't understand why that's not possible. I mean, I have a cousin in Bhopal, and her mother sends her fresh bamboo shoot from all the way from Arunachal Pradesh, and she freezes it and then uses it whenever she needs to. And it tastes absolutely fine, and we make a fantastic bharta with it, which is just with roasted green chilies and onions and this bamboo shoot sort of boiled and mashed up with it. And it's one of the best dishes that you can have. So I'm sure there are a whole lot of other hidden gems out there. And if you guys are watching, and if you have some hidden gems that you would like to share with us, do that. I'm still thinking about doing my food yatra, so this was like a preamble to it probably. But we should be getting there soon. And any questions, anybody, or any comments or anything? Otherwise, then we shall say bye bye, and I am going to go and eat some bamboo shoot now. Bamboo shoot bhatta. Oh, yummy. I have some Korean bamboo shoot actually. I have a tin from the Korean store in Seoul, called Seoul, in Penukonda. Imagine going all the way to Penukonda and finding a Korean store that is selling you bamboo shoot. Bye bye on this happy thought.